Evening, folks. JR back for another fun-filled evening here. This is going to be episode 2 from the Echoes of Shannon Street case file. This is going to be the mistake. When a tragedy occurs, what generally preceded is a number of small, seemingly innocent actions, errors, omissions, misunderstandings, or mistakes that alone would not have caused the frightful event. When combined, however, each action helped to put those involved ever closer to an ending that no one wanted or could have foretold. Different instances that occurred on January the 11th, 1983, where if any one of them had not have occurred, then there probably wouldn't have been a Shannon Street incident. So I just thought we would take a little bit of time and go over witness statements taken from police officers and from civilians. Different actions or inactions that occurred that may have made a difference. Number 1, misidentification of Michael Coleman in a misdemeanor theft. West Precinct police officers go to Coleman's home for a routine follow-up. After the phone call made to 2239 Shannon Street, Lindbergh Sanders tells Coleman to call police. And finally, Coleman provides incorrect answer to a question asked by Police Department call taker Scarborough. The following typewritten statements taken by the Memphis Police Department will cover the above actions. Now, at the conclusion of me reading the statements, the question and answers, it's only going to be question and answers related directly to events listed, but I will make comments about what I would have done or not have done. All right, let's look at that first statement. Question: while you were on duty, did you have an occasion to receive a purse snatch call? Yes. Where did you make the call to? 544 Peyton. Approximately what time did you make the call? About 37 hours, which is 8:37 p.m. Question: when you arrived on the scene, did you talk to the complainant of the purse snatch? Answer: yes. Did you take a report from Miss Smith? Yes. What did Miss Smith tell you in regard to the purse snatch? She said that she was getting off duty and she had placed her purse on the counter to sign out for the day. And when she finished that and turned around, her purse was gone. Did she see who took her purse? Personally, no, she did not. Who did you receive the information from? Don Ross. What did he tell you? He said at the approximate time the victim's purse was taken, he saw 2 male blacks leaving the store with the purse that fit the description of the victim's purse. Did he furnish a name to you as to who took the purse? Yes, Michael Coleman. How did Mr. Ross get this name? He gave a description of the person he saw to one of the employees of the store, and that employee knew the suspect personally and also had seen him in the store at the approximate time the purse was taken. Also, the witness, Ross, stated that he had taught the suspect in school at Manassas, so he knew him, he just didn't remember his name. What description do you have of the person who took the purse? He was supposed to be a male black, approximately 6 foot 2 inches, 245 pounds, medium build, black hair, brown eyes, approximately 18 years old. Who took the report on the purse snatch? I did. Who furnished the address and what address did they furnish? Don Ross furnished the address and it was 630 North 7th, Apartment A. Did you go to Michael Coleman's address? Yes. Did anyone go with you besides your partner? Yes, Don Ross. Who did you talk to at the house? Michael Coleman's mother, and there were 3 young men there. I presume they were his brothers. What did Miss Coleman tell you when you went to the house? She said that the suspect had been there for 2 days, and then he was at somebody else's house in North Memphis. They said that the boy was in North Memphis. They dialed the number, one of the young men supposedly to the house in North Memphis. And he asked Michael Coleman if he had been in the Kroger store, and he said he hadn't. He was in North Memphis, and he had been there all day. Did anyone else talk to Michael Coleman on the telephone? Don Ross. Did Don Ross tell you what Michael Coleman said? Don Ross stated that Michael Coleman stated he was in Memphis all day, and he had not been in the Kroger store. But Don Ross saw a picture of Michael Coleman on the mantle, but it was like a 6-year-old picture, but he did state that was the one. Did anyone try to obtain the address or phone number where Michael Coleman was? No. Why? Oversight. All right, let's go to the second officer's statement. First question, what did Mr. Ross tell you in regards to the purse snatch? Mr. Ross told officers that he had seen the male black suspect run from the Kroger store, and after talking to another employee and giving him the description of the suspect, the other employee told Mr. Ross that the description fit a male black Michael Coleman. Did this other unknown employee who furnished the name of Michael Coleman actually see the purse snatch? To the best of my knowledge, I don't know. I don't think he actually saw the purse snatch. Was the name Michael Coleman given just from the description of the male black involved? Right. How did you obtain the address? We obtained the address from Mr. Ross. State in detail what transpired at the North 7th address when you talked with Michael Coleman's mother. Mrs. Coleman stated that her son hadn't been in the neighborhood all day, that he was over to a friend's house. I think she said it was over in Hyde Park area. A male black at the residence stated that he knew the phone number where Michael was. The male black called the number and talked to Michael. Don Ross also talked to Michael and asked him what address he was at, but did not get an answer. We then left. Approximately what time was this when you were at the house and Michael was talked to on the telephone? Approximately 47 hours. Did you ever put out a broadcast on Michael Coleman regarding the purse snatch? No, we didn't. Did you merely just list Michael Coleman as a suspect in your report? Yes, we did. Would Don Ross have given you a street or a number if he had obtained it? I believe so, so it could be put in the report. Why did Don Ross talk to Michael Coleman on the telephone and not you or your partner? After the male black talked to Michael, Mr. Ross took the phone and asked him the address, and when he didn't get one, he hung up the phone. And I don't know if Michael Coleman had hung up before or if Mr. Ross had just put the phone down after he couldn't get an address. Okay, let's look at the statement from the off-duty police officer who was working security at Kroger's. Were you working for Kroger on Tuesday, January 11th, 1983? Yes. What store were you working at on Tuesday, January 11th, 1983? Store 210, 544 Peyton. While you were working at Kroger store 544 Peyton on January 11, 1983, did anything unusual happen? And if so, explain what happened. Female employee came to me and told me someone had taken her purse. From the description of the purse, I recalled that 2 male blacks had just left the store with that purse. I recognized one of the male blacks from having taught him in high school, but I didn't remember his name. I immediately left out the store, seeing if I could follow them to see where they went, and was unable to locate them. So I came back into the store and asked the cashier, who was a resident of the neighborhood, if he could tell me the name of the male black whose face I knew. After giving him the description of the male black, He told me his name was Michael Coleman of 630 North 7th, Apartment A. I wasn't absolutely sure this was the same guy I recognized as having taken the purse. Though I knew his face, I didn't remember his name, and I was really going on the name that the cashier gave me at Kroger from my description. Did she ever tell you she saw the people that got her purse? No. What was the name of the employee that you described the male black to? Charles, the cashier. I don't remember his last name. I called the store, and his name is Charles Jackson. Question, did Charles say that he had seen the male black that you described inside the store? He said he had seen this male black hanging around in the store quite a bit that day. Had you actually taught Michael Coleman in school? I taught the male black who I described to the checker, but I don't know whether or not his name is Michael Coleman. Did you merely go to 630 North 7th address by the name furnished you by the checker, Charles? Right, yes. What did Michael's brother say on the phone to Michael while you were present? He said the police are over here and they say you stole something from Kroger. He gave me the phone at that point. Michael didn't answer the phone. Somebody else answered the phone. He was talking to somebody else. Question, before you took the phone to talk to Michael, what did Michael's brother say to the other person on the telephone? The police are over here looking for Michael, and handed me the phone. But before Michael came to the phone, another person was still on the phone. He say, what the fuck you talking about? Michael ain't stole no motherfucking purse. I didn't say anything. I just say, I want to speak to Michael, and Michael came to the phone. What did you say to Michael, and what did Michael say to you on the phone? I said, what's going on, Michael? I say, this is Don Ross from Kroger. Do you remember me? And he stated he didn't know what I was talking about. He hadn't been to Kroger. I said, where are you? Give the address and phone number where you are. And he began to utter obscenities saying, man, I ain't stole no goddamn purse. I don't know what you're talking about. So I just hung up the phone. Are you saying you hung up the phone on Michael? I hung up. Before leaving the Coleman home, did you ever try to obtain from anyone the address and phone number where Michael was? Well, I asked where he was, and he said Hyde Park area. I never did ask the street, but he did offer to take me over there. So I didn't want to inconvenience the officers, and I declined his offer. But I didn't try to get the phone number and address because I didn't feel they were giving correct information anyway. Does Michael Coleman know you from the Kroger store? I don't know if Michael Coleman knows me. The suspect described as Michael Coleman does know me. Were you ever shown a picture of Michael Coleman while you were at the house? I was shown a picture of him when he was about 5 years old. I will show you a juvenile photograph of Michael Coleman taken on 9/5/81 and ask if this is the person you saw leaving the Kroger store. It's not the one I taught, and it's not the person I saw leaving the store. Can you tell me why that you hung up on Michael Coleman before you could get an address from him? Because he was very uncooperative, and I knew I would see him again. Okay, let's talk about these or try to decide if we could have done anything different. Now, the first one, the misidentification of Michael Coleman for allegedly taking a purse. There was no proper identification process. You don't go to somebody and describe a person to them and ask them who they think it is if they didn't see the same person you saw, if that makes any sense. Giving information to the police would have been fine, as long as the police put in the report how you came to identify that person, because you want the investigators and the bureau to look at it, because as soon as they see it, they're going to discount it. At best, what they might do is they might go pull a booking photo of Michael Coleman, just like they did. Unfortunately, Don Ross didn't see a picture of Michael Coleman in a proper lineup until after Shannon Street had already occurred. And when he actually saw the picture, he said that wasn't the person that he saw. So it might have been nice if that would have occurred a little earlier, or maybe not name somebody as a suspect when you haven't properly identified them, since as we see that did lead to issues down the road. It led to all these other events that occurred, which then led us to Shannon Street. Now, number two, West Precinct police officers go to Coleman's home for a routine follow-up. That's proper. That's what you should do. You should go and do a follow-up. They didn't have to. I get the feeling from reading these statements that neither officer put a lot of stock in Michael Coleman as a suspect. But they did do a follow-up because his mother's apartment at 7th Street's just down, just a few blocks away from Kroger's. So, and taking Don Ross along would have been the right thing to do, since he's claiming that he thinks that's who it is. Because if Michael Coleman had been at the apartment, then Don Ross could have looked at him and let him know yay or nay on whether he's the one who did it. Now, wasn't too keen on looking at a photo of someone that's a very, very old picture. Obviously, him identifying Michael Coleman from that picture sitting in his mama's apartment didn't go well. But phone calls made to 2239 Shannon Street. Lindbergh Sanders tells Coleman to call the police. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over the civilian witness statements regarding the phone call made up to the Shannon Street address. We're going to see what everybody inside the house was saying about the interaction between Ross and Coleman, and then Sanders and Coleman. On Tuesday evening, about 8:30 p.m., did two policemen come to your home accompanied by a male black and accused Michael of stealing a purse? Right. Would you explain just exactly what happened down there? Okay, they knocked on the door and my mother let them in, and he asked for Michael Coleman. I said, Michael Coleman is not here. And he said something about Mike had stole a purse. I wanted to know where he could be located, So I called a friend's house and he wasn't there. He talked to the guy who accused Michael of stealing, and the phone was hung up. The guy left, and I told the guy before he left that he had told a lie. Michael couldn't have stolen anything. It was impossible for him to steal anything, and he left. That was all that was said. Next thing I knew was a car was coming to Lindbergh Sanders' house. You said you called a friend's house to see if Michael was there. Who was the friend's house you called? I called Lindbergh. That's out on Shannon, is that correct? Mm-hmm. Did you get to talk to Michael when you called out there? No. Do you know who you talked to when you called out there? No. Do you have any knowledge as to why the police came to Lindbergh's house? Yes, there was a call from Mike from his brother Ben, stating that the police was over at their house waiting on him for snatching a pocketbook. Mike got on the phone and talked with some officer and hung up in this officer's face. Lindbergh told him not to do that because he didn't have nothing to hide. He'd been over there all day. He called back and he told them where he was and whatever. Are you telling us that Michael called the police station and told them where he was at and if they wanted him to come on over and get him? Yes. Did this phone call that Michael got seem to upset Lindbergh? No. Michael upset him by hanging up in his face. He told Mike that he was acting guilty like he had did something, and he knew he hadn't. That's why he made him call back. Do you have any knowledge as to why the police came to Lindbergh's house? He received a phone call from Michael's brother, and from what I could understand, Ben was telling my father that police were down at the house and were looking for Michael because he had snatched a pocketbook. I heard my father tell Ben that was a lie because Michael had been down there all day and hadn't left the house. Then my father gave Michael the phone and told Michael to talk to the people and explain to them that it couldn't have been him because he was over there. Michael got on the phone and was talking on the phone, and then the next I know he had hung up the phone. So my father asked him why he do that, and Michael told him that they had hung up, and my father told him he was telling a lie, and he hung up the telephone. So my father told him to pick up the phone and call back, that he didn't have anything to be scared of, that he hadn't did anything. Michael called back and they told him that the police had left. He then hung the phone up again, and my father told him to call the police and explain to them that the police were at his house looking for him for a purse snatch, and he didn't do anything to tell the police where he was. After Michael called the police and told them, he hung up the phone. The next thing that happened was 2 police officers were knocking at the door. At this point, was your father quite upset with Michael to the point where he and Michael were arguing with each other? He was upset with Michael because he had lied. He asked Michael why did he hang up the phone when you hadn't did anything. All right, on this particular statement here, the police asked the general what happened on this date question regarding January the 11th, and Mr. Young gave an incredibly long answer, so I wanted to just try to stick to the part that dealt with what we're looking at here regarding the phone call. So we're going to pick up here with Mr. Sanders asked where we were going because he was still telling us to learn this psalm, so they came back in. After they came back in, he was still talking to us. As he was talking, the phone rang. He answered the phone, and the police were on the phone asking about Michael. And then Michael got on the phone, talked to the police for a short while, and hung it up. Then Mr. Sanders got angry with Michael and told him, if you didn't do anything, why did you hang up? And no, you didn't do nothing. So he told him to call home first to see if the police were still there. The police were not there, and he told him to call the police station. Michael did that and told them where he was and where to send the police car. It was a phone call for Michael Coleman saying that he had snatched a pocketbook. Berg was talking to someone on the phone. Who it was, I don't know. He told the people on the phone that they were lying because Michael had been over to his house. He said, that's the man. Wait a minute, I'm messing up. After Berg gave the phone to Michael, Michael talked a few minutes and slammed the phone down. Berg told Michael to call those people and tell them that he hadn't done nothing, and that tell them where he was, and if they wanted to come out to the house to see him, that's where they'd be. All right, what we had there were 5 witness statements. Actually, one was a defendant statement, but either way, it was 5 men that were in the house at 2239 Shannon when Ben Coleman called looking for Michael, and gives us an idea of what was going on the other end of that phone call, what that phone call started. Excuse me, I'm taking a drink of water. As you can see from the statements, and by the way, I believe what they're saying when they say that Lindbergh Sanders was upset with Michael because you hang up the phone, makes it look like you're guilty. Actually, it would have been nice if Michael had not have hung up the phone. It would have been nice if he would have told Ross where he was at right then. But as you can see from the statements, Lindbergh told Michael to get back on the phone, call back to his mama's house, his mama's apartment on 7th Street, so they could tell the police where they were at. It's just obvious that by the time they called, the police had already left. There is another part of the statement, Ben's statement. I didn't include it because I'm thinking about using it for another episode, but we'll just say that it's corroborated from the other end that a phone call was made back to Miss Coleman's apartment, and it probably was Michael. So now you've got Lindbergh Sanders upset at Michael because the police have accused him of something that he didn't do. And he wants to get it straightened out, which is admirable to do. It's unfortunate it turned out the way it did, but I don't even know what else to say about that. That's just amazing how things turn out. But obviously, when he calls the police, then that's going to be the next part of this. We're going to find out about the mistake that Michael made when he called the Memphis Police Department communications. So, but we have to keep in mind now that Lindbergh Sanders is upset. He's upset that the police would accuse Michael of something he didn't do, and he's upset with Michael because Michael just has made it worse. But the shame of it is if they don't make that phone call, we don't have a Shannon Street incident. If Lindbergh just would have left it alone, then they never would have seen the police. The police weren't going to come up there. There wasn't going to be a warrant issued for Michael. Nothing would have come of any of it. Oh, sad. But, you don't know that at the time. He thinks he's doing the right thing, and he is. He's wanting to get it straightened out because he doesn't want the police looking for Michael when he knows Michael didn't do anything wrong. So it's just you've got a man in Lindbergh Sanders he's a mental consumer, and he's agitated, and And you got Michael, he's agitated. Of course, he's young too. Michael's just now 18, so he's upset. Everybody's upset. But later on, we're going to find out in another episode, and it's probably going to be the next episode. We're going to talk about. I promise you, we're going to do the next one's going to be the call. We're going to get into that. So, and then some of this other will come out because it'll be interesting. We read some more statements about what's going on at 2239 Shannon before the police get there. I think you'll find it interesting. So, going to be a good one. But anyways, we need to take care of this last what if only it had been a different way. We're going to go look at number 6 now. And we'll see where Michael went wrong on his phone call. Okay, so now we're going to cover Michael Coleman provides incorrect answer to question asked by police department call taker. So y'all have probably all heard the police radio transmissions, but I wonder if you ever caught the mistake that Michael made when he answered a question, and it led to a whole bunch of confusion. So we're going to listen to this, and I'm going to point out to you what we got.
About 5 minutes ago. Yeah. I missed 2239 Shannon. 2239 what? Shannon. Shannon? Yeah. In Hollywood. Where'd they go by and look for you? Over there in Shannon? Yeah. After? I'll have them come back by there, okay? Yeah.
Okay. I put up the particular question and answer. Now, Scarborough asked the question, where did they go by and look for you at? Over there on Shannon? Now, what he's asking about is where did the police go and look for you, Michael Coleman? Where did the police show up at? That's what he's asking. And he says over there on Shannon, because that's where Coleman says he's at. So Coleman says, yeah. Well, Coleman should have says no. Now what this does is, when he tells them that the police came by 2239 Shannon looking for him, 2239 Shannon is in the North Precinct. Okay? The police went by and looked for Michael Coleman at his mama's place on 7th Street. Okay? That was the West Precinct that went by his mama's place. So, if Michael Coleman says, no, they went to my mama's place, then Scarborough would have asked him, okay, well, what's your mama's address? And then if he gives Scarborough that address, then all he's got to do is pick up the inter-office line and call the West Dispatcher and say, did you have a car make the scene over on 7th Street? And the West Dispatcher would have looked it up and said, yep, 435 was over there. What were they over there for? Attempt pickup? About a purse that was stolen? Well, guess what? Then you would have 435 would have been contacted, and they'd had the option. They either could have went up there and took care of it, or they would have said, look, that information on the named suspect is bogus. Just call him back and tell him If we need to talk to him, we'll talk to him later. The investigators will. They could have done that, or they could have went up there, either one. So, because if you go back and listen to the radio transmissions again, when Michael calls in, if you remember, Scarborough gets on inter-office line and calls the North Dispatcher and says, hey, you had somebody over there on Shannon looking for somebody. He says, we ain't been over there all day, because he's the evening shift, right? Because if you'll listen, he says it must have been day shift, because we ain't been over there. So then you have Hester and Swill being sent on a call, and they're assuming the North End handled it, and the dispatcher thinks they have, and they're walking into something they got no idea what it is. So a little bit of a problem right there. So if you get a chance, go back and listen to the tape again and just listen to all the conversation between the dispatcher and the call taker, and just think how different it would have been if Michael Coleman had given the correct information. Also, too, I don't know if you've ever really paid attention to it, but that voice you hear in the background when Michael Coleman calls in on the phone, that's Lindbergh Sanders. So if you've never heard him in the background, then you need to get back on there and listen to it again. You can hear Lindbergh talking to Michael, telling him, giving him the address and how long ago it was the police had called and all that. But I mean, you can tell from the phone call that Michael was kind of scared being on the phone with the police because he didn't know what to say. So that didn't help the situation. And he's got Lindbergh hollering at him, telling him what to say. So, now, some people have said that, well, you know, the call taker on the phone should have done something different, but I don't know exactly what the call taker would have done any different. So you get a lot of calls coming in to communications, and obviously if there's some follow-up question, you'll make it, but you figure somebody calling in ought to know where they's at where the police came to look for them at. But if he doesn't pick up that phone and make that phone call, we'd have been slick. We'd had 8 people that'd still be alive, or at least would have been alive in the next few days anyways. All right, well, that's it. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I'll try to get that next one out, episode 3, out in a few days. And I think y'all going to enjoy it. You're going to get to really see a bunch of pretty cool stuff, I think. So, but be sure and listen to the radio transmissions again, though. At least that first part of the house. And I guess we will get together and work on this next segment. In a couple of days, we'll have it out and we'll go from there. And I do appreciate y'all listening in.